Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take your sources, unpack them, and pull out the key nuggets of knowledge for you. Today we've got a really fascinating set of materials. They lay out this, intricate conceptual timeline.
Yeah, it's quite something.
Our goal here is to break down these unique periods, the pivotal events, the transformations, basically give you a shortcut to grasping this complex narrative.
And what's really interesting, I think, is how these sources link huge spans of time. You mentioned Adam 4000 to Adam 6000, for instance.
Right.
They connect that not just to dates, but to these symbolic days, major shifts, really setting the stage for some quite dramatic events described later.
Okay, let's dive into that. So the sources detail this progression starting, as you said, with Adam 4000 to Adam 6000. Now, these aren't literal years, are they? They're more like conceptual eras.
Exactly. It's a framework for history and sort of spiritual development. This period is described as covering the 5th to 6th day. And it leads up to the end of the 6th 1,000 years, right in its critical point, the last 7 years.
And that last 7 years gets a specific name, doesn't it?
It does. It's called the last one, Ira.
Ira, okay.
Yeah, and an Ira in this context seems to be a specific predetermined block of time. It marks the conclusion, the Ira, of this larger 70 Ira prophecy.
So it suggests a very structured, almost preordained timeline unfolding.
Precisely. A divine plan, you could say.
And this is where it gets, really interesting for me. During this specific transition period, Azazel, or Satan, as he's identified, is confined. Is that right?
Yeah.
To a wilderness abyss.
Yes, that's what the sources indicate.
Yeah.
And that act signals the beginning of the next major phase, the 7th 1,000 years.
And crucially, there's this thing called the beast rule. How does that fit in?
Ah, yes. The sources are quite specific. That beast rule, this period of, oppressive power, marks the very beginning of that last one, Ira.
Okay, so the start of the end, in a way.
Sort of, yeah. Which naturally leads you to ask, what actually happens during that beast rule?
Right. What defines it?
Well, the sources describe 7 plagues, pouring out, it seems, directly from the spiritual realm, from the air down to the earth.
Wow.
And these plagues really define that next big block of time, the Adam 6000 to Adam 7000 period.
Which is also called the 7th day.
That's exactly. A final sort of climactic phase, intense tribulation.
But amidst all that, devastation, really. The sources also talk about hope or spiritual movements. The early rain.
Yes, the early rain. This represents the believers who receive the first fruits, that initial outpouring of the Holy Spirit.
And then there's the late rain.
Right. A later significant group, it mentions 144,000 individuals specifically, plus 2 witnesses.
And they find refuge. The text uses Penactio.
Refuge. But it's alongside this devastating event where it says 13 of people die. So intense judgment, but also protection for this specific group.
It's a stark contrast.
It really is.
Yeah.
And central to this whole phase are the martyr witnesses.
Okay, tell us about them.
Their sacrifice, coupled with what's called the first resurrection, is seen as proving the truthfulness of the commandments.
Okay, so their witness confirms the divine law.
With the belief that the Holy Spirit is actively present with them, and this first resurrection, the plagues you mentioned, the judgment on the beast, it all seems to converge.
Leading towards
a restored state, towards Eden, essentially,
Right.
a return to that ideal.
So after all that turbulence, after the judgment and the witness, there's reconciliation. It mentions actual temple atonement.
Yes, and significantly also Hades atonement.
Hades atonement. That sounds quite comprehensive.
It does, doesn't it? Like a universal scope to this reconciliation. And if you zoom out again, these acts of atonement, it also mentions bunyang, incense for great atonement. These seem to be the final culminating steps. They're the prelude to the ultimate goal described in the sources.
Which is?
The Sehanolugwa Saitang, the new heaven and new earth.
Right.
And the establishment, finally, of the Eyuwangak, the Messiah kingdom. It's presented as a complete transformation, the ultimate restoration.
So stepping back, what does all this mean for you, the listener? We've traced this incredibly symbolic, dense timeline from these conceptual ages through intense trials, specific judgments, spiritual movements, all the way to this idea of a radically new heaven and earth. It's definitely a shortcut to understanding this particular perspective.
It really is, and it raises a fascinating question, I think. How do timelines like this, so structured, yet also quite abstract, how do they shape how we understand concepts like, divine purpose, history, judgment, and ultimately transformation or redemption.
Yeah.
It really makes you think about the power of these conceptual frameworks, doesn't it? How they help us interpret complex, grand narratives.
Definitely a lot to chew on there. Maybe you'll find yourself thinking about how these symbolic days and years, these powerful concepts, connect or maybe contrast with other big stories or timelines you've come across. Something to keep exploring, for sure.